Okay.
Yes.
Well, welcome everyone. Yes, I'm unmuted. Wanted to make sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to invite us into a quiet space. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and to place one hand over your heart and one hand over your abdomen. And to feel your breath going into these two places. So as you close your eyes and put your hand on your heart and your other hand on your abdomen, imagine a figure 8 of golden light connecting the two spaces. And this is a good place to breathe from when we're feeling we need quiet strength, or we're caught in suffering or despair, or when we just want to go within and get more centered. So with your alternating breaths, breathe deeply into your abdomen area. And then in your head, just imagine that you're using the words me, lead, as you breathe into your abdomen up as part of the figure 8. And then the next one will be mean, vicha, and that's the figure 8 that goes around your heart. And if it's easier for you not to have a word, that's okay too. But just imagine that with each breath, you're making a circle of a figure 8 from your heart and your abdomen so that you're connecting the two areas. Imagine that you're nourishing with each breath your heart and your abdomen. If you're a woman, you can call it your womb space. If you're a man, you can call it your abdomen space. But it's the seat of our center, our connection with the earth, our connection with intuition. So we want to drop in, inviting those breaths lower and slower, and making sure that each breath in that figure 8 is nourishing our heart and our abdomen. Nourishing our heart and our abdomen. And just see that golden figure 8 loop as you breathe, as making that divine connection between your heart and your abdomen area, as we drop our breath and our energy lower and slower into our body. So we're getting out of our head and getting lower and slower into our body and into the Mother Earth. As you continue breathing with the golden figure 8 between your heart and your abdomen, I'm going to be reading something for you called The Black River Speaks. So take in those words as you're continuing the breath between your heart and your abdomen. Let your light descend, enter your body. I will hold you and bring you real life. I will allow you to become the heaviest you have ever been, the most grounded you have ever been, and make you light again. The Black River is the memory of the body, held within the body, that leads to your true self once you have embraced and woven me into your life. I am sloth, I am inertia, I am gravity, I am stability. I am your body, I make you solid and tangible. I am the sleep that hides within you until you contact me. And I thank you for breathing deep into your heart and your abdomen, your womb space, that you can connect with me. I am the perfect stability that supports creation into being in the darkness. I am the fluid silence of physical mastery. I am the glue of matter that binds atoms together. I am bondage, suffering, death, and inertia that you are too scared to face and acknowledge. I am part of life, and I signal the beginnings of new life. Enter death and you enter new life. I am the voice of your loneliness, the feelings that you have rationalized spiritually and intellectually. I am the voice that hides underneath your spiritual and political correctness. I am the root of your irritation with yourself. I am the emptiness of your humanity, and I show you where you have betrayed your humanity. I am that which you have to dare to express, to take courage to share. I am the voice lurking in the shadows, waiting, festering for a moment to speak through you. I remind you of the human truth of relationship, not the white truth, but the grounded truth. I show you your illusions and fantasies that you designed to keep you safe at night. I show you the falsity of your presence and what lies underneath it. I show you the real you, warts and all, and what you do not wish to see. So honor me, this black river. Honor my voice within you. Keep the balance between your human needs and your divine giving. I ground your selflessness onto earth, into her body. Honor your body world and its impulses. Do not let me take over, for if I do, I will lead you into the deepest slumber of forgetting. I am the voice of matter trapped in light, and when honored, I am the voice of Shakti released in the world. I am the voice of the primal web of life here and now relating to the earth. So speak my name, whether you scream it, whisper it, growl it, or sing it. Love it all. My voice is your truth. Let me slip through your lips, just a droplet, a sigh, a soft moan, and flow with it, allow it, follow it back to my source. In this way, you become the river. Breathe into whatever darkness arises and breathe it out into expression. I am unearthing your shadows. All your grief, joy, primal rage, what are they all but flow? Soft eddies and vast waters, all of it is love. I'm going to invite you back into the room when you feel ready. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and honor that dark river within you with whatever kind of growl, moan. So maybe Aaron can unmute all of us really quickly. Could be whatever that center wants to speak for you right now. Make a noise. Thank you for honoring that dark river within. Hold on. I pass to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda. Welcome. So just some open space for us this morning, this afternoon, this evening. Thank you for being here. It feels like a short time that we were together just a week ago, and I still feel a lot of the same fragileness that I felt exactly 7 days ago. So we just wanted to hear some voices, and the question that Bio sent out a couple of days ago was, do you believe in ghosts? So perhaps that's a provocative question to delve into as we start this fourth session of our time together. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes, hi, Priya. I do believe in ghosts, and right now I've been present to a really angry and outraged one in my body. And I'm so grateful that Brenda helped me give voice to it. I growled. So yeah, I do believe in ghosts.
Jonathan here. I guess
that.
part of me thinks I don't not believe in ghosts.
Okay.
Ghosts,
Okay.
ghosts, like so many things, like the wind, like mountains. They're gonna it almost seems like there's so many things that I cannot comprehend that for me to not believe in them just seems silly because it would be limiting the possibility of what the world might experience or I might experience. So I'm not even sure what a ghost is, but I'll bet it exists, whatever that is.
I wrote a short
Thanks,
thing.
Jonathan. I was just going to say.
Oh, Bio, you've gone away
Fran?
again. Yeah.
Hello? I was just going to say something quickly that this is a safe place, okay? So we are all permitted to be weird and crazy here. In fact, you don't even need to believe in ghosts, but something haunts you right now, so to speak, and you can speak those things to being, basically. So just want to invite you to the weirdness of this space and this time and this moment. My dear sister Fran.
So we had a conversation about cultural appropriation on Facebook a couple of days ago, and I wrote a paragraph, and I've written another paragraph. Is it okay if I read two paragraphs? Is this too much? No? Okay. Guess I'm going to wear my glasses. I live on land that was never ceded by indigenous peoples. Sometimes I feel the souls of all the people who ever lived here walking around, both indigenous and settler. If I listen with the cells of my body, they are here still. Some saying, what is this pavement doing here? Hey, why are you polluting this Zibuan, which is the river? What is this stone hewn for? What did you displace it for? Why did you cut it? The heavy guilt of the settler smothers the cities in smog and sneaks among the remaining trees like a ghost. The old settlers are here too. I walk with them all, and they walk through me. If I want to use an Anishinaabe or Kanyenkehaka cultural artifact word ceremony, I'd better be damn careful with those ancestors. I have to love them, respect them, know them, their descendants. Dancing them in ritual and spirit, knowing the traditions and respecting them is, I think, an act of love and should always have been there. So I wrote that was from Anishinaabe territory. And then I wrote the following in response to Bio's invitation about ghosts. Believing in ghosts has something to do with changing our sense of knowing something and with how inner knowledge and understanding deep within our body relates to the outside world. It's making me cry, this stuff. How these supposedly binary two are in fact multiple and smeared in one into the other like smeared pigment, like the confluence of rivers, like clay in a potter's hand. Like poetry disturbs the usual pattern of speech. It requires a suspicion that the accepted supremacy of the rational mind is in fact a myth. If the door is open into the room where someone might change you into a goat, that's for you, Bio. Where your body may become planted and where you become a tree, where you dissolve into the ocean and you're eaten by fish like so many flakes of fine fish food. When your door is open, ghosts are imminent. They might decide to live within you like an ether that puts you to sleep and dreams you alive to another world.
Thank you, friend. Thank you so much, friend.
Yesterday,
Space is still open.
yesterday we started a hospice with my father. He's 95. And there's no doubt in my mind that there are ghosts or spirit guides or whatever we want to call them. He has one foot already in the non-physical world, and I'm watching him and I'm listening to him. He sees all these people. He sees my mother. He talks to them. And it's as if they're lifting him up, lifting us all up, and reassuring him that the transition will be beautiful. And he's teaching all of us. So yes, ghosts, yes.
Thank you, Jane. The space is still open.
I'll speak about ghosts. Ghosts all day, every day. So ghosts are familiar, very familiar to me in the way that they're most unfamiliar and can never be really seen or known or understood. I think of ghosts as like almost like a breath of the earth. There's something like the gases, the gasness that is left over from the body of the earth and the bodies lying within the soil of the earth. And I recently had an experience where I was camping in a gorge for a couple of nights alone, and my hearing started to change, and I started to contact these other frequencies that were emerging audio from the creek and the river that I was camping near, and the voices of that creek and the river that were emerging, these other layers of these kind of deeper tones that were more within my experience of hearing, were screams. Those screams, and they were harrowing, and they were these painful cries emerging, and I felt not only people of that land and just the ancestors and all the creatures of that land, but the whole of the earth, that the harrowing cries, the echoes of suffering and pain, and the human and experience and the non-human experience. It's almost like they can get transmitted through the waterways and through the crevices and through the veins of the body of this earth, and that if there is repressed energy or repressed emotion, vibrationally it's still there in the walls, and that if we listen at this time of year potentially and really hear it, that's a way that I encountered ghosts really recently. Thank you for listening.
Virginia, what you just said actually makes me think of every time I look at the Facebook page, I feel like there's like a roar of waves. Just it's almost like I go to read something and it's so intense. There's so much more than just, the post in the little bubble. And just hearing you talk like that and thinking of waterways made me think of this roaring wave. And even when I'm not looking at it, I still feel like it's out there, and it's so much. So that really, what you said really helps me think of that overwhelming feeling I'm getting as I'm looking at this cyberspace collaboration And maybe for me, that's part of it. It's just so much beyond what's in that virtual space.
Thank you, Megan. And thank you all for sharing. So I disappeared like a ghost due to technical glitches of some kind I haven't figured out yet, but I'm here. I'm still present. And I want to welcome every one of you again from wherever you. If you cannot hear me because of the glitches that I still cannot figure out, I think there's something happening outside weather-wise. Please just wave your hand and signal to me so I don't just speak on and speak on. Okay, so you can hear me. Good. Great. Thank you. I'd like to ground us as I thank Brenda for doing what she did and what those that haunt her did with her for us. I would like to ground us with something that I heard my friend say to me. This was last year. He was quoting Francis Weller, who writes about grief and has done some good work and publishing in that regard. And every time I hear this, or every time I repeat it to myself, I'm stopped, so to speak. It's like I hit an obstacle. I'm literally staring into the face of my existential mortality, if you will. But it stops me, and I just want to utter it here and invite you to echo it to yourselves and sit with it for a couple of seconds before we dive in. And what it is this. What you love, you will lose. What you love, you will lose. What you love, you will lose. Let's just sit with that for a few seconds.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
That's the best signal to get us back into the room. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sitting with that. And in the spirit of the festival that has enveloped all of India at the moment, but I believe is beginning to wind down, and with permission from Sayani and John and all my Indian brothers and sisters here, I say happy Diwali to you and Priya. A couple of days ago, my family, and when you speak about family in this part of the world, it's not the industrial, nuclear family we speak of. It's uncles of uncles and aunts of aunts and cousins that you never knew, and mycelial connections. And so they know I'm this nerd that likes to stay indoors. That's not so much of a revelation to my closest friends. But they came around and said, we're not going to allow you to stay indoors. And so they dragged me to the terrace of a building, my wife and kids, and they lit up these firecrackers, exploding into the sky. And everyone was shouting happy Diwali. It was a beautiful sight, except that it scared me just a bit because I'm more of a tortoise, like to be in my shell. but it was exploding all over the place. And I was staring at the sparks in the sky. It's going on right now, if you can hear it. I was looking up into the sky and watching the stream of light, just going into the eternal blue and then bursting into multiple colors, and looking at the constellation of sparks that came out from that explosion, if you will. And that inspired me to want to do what I'm going to do today. So the way I usually do these talks is I speak very fast, or I just go on a roller coaster of libations. But today I want to incorporate the gaps between constellations, if you will. This is going to be slow, is what I'm trying to say. It's going to be slow. It's going to be, there's going to be selahs, if you will. If you read the Bible, there are parts in the Psalms where no one knows exactly what it means, but the verses are punctuated, saying maybe Salah means here's where you pause, here's where you slow down. So there's going to be a lot of slowing down. Like a constellation, I'm not going to be given a linear narrative. It's going to be diffracted. It's going to be mosaic. It's going to be episodic, disparate yearnings and musings here and there, touching on indigeneity and racial justice and activisms and being who we are, or whatever that means. It's going to touch everything all over the place. And so I want to welcome you with that, saying Happy Diwali. Diwali in our context would mean something more than just lights. It means a slowness. It means a settling and a grounding ourselves. Okay, speaking of ghosts, I have some notes here to slow me down. My first real encounter with ghosts, not that I've seen the popular rendition of ghosts, two twins, a pair of twins down the hallway kind of ghosts. Not that I've seen that, but I grew up in a colonial context where I grew up watching programs on TV that we were supposed to watch, that every cool kid was supposed to watch. I don't know if any of you knows Rent-A-Ghost. You probably don't. It's a British show about, oh, you guys don't know it. Rent-A-Ghost. It's the one who doesn't quite know he's dead yet, or who is not quite even dead yet, because sometimes he bursts into the living and then slips back into the land of ghosts. And then his other comedic companions, and basically how they live in the world of the living, or how they straddle the world of death and life. And then, of course, you guys will probably know this one, Ghostbusters. No one? Anyone? Take any takers?
Yeah.
Good. You guys are horrible, all of you. So those were the things I grew up on. Rent-A-Ghost, Ghostbusters. No one really talked about ghosts, especially in a Christian context like where I grew up in. You didn't, talking about ghosts was taboo. You didn't talk about dead people. You didn't see dead people either. You just went about your life, if you will, until it became real for me. My father died October 19 in 1999. He passed away. I remember coming back from school. I remember coming back from school, the Nigerian Navy Secondary School. The car came to pick me up. My father was a diplomat, and he was based in Kinshasa, Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was supposed to be retired from his ambassadorial duties and to come back into the country on a Thursday. He died on a Monday, that Monday. Well, I didn't know any of this until I got home and I saw cars parked in our compound. And um, got upstairs to the house, I could already hear wailing. I could already hear crying. And my deepest fear as a growing up kid, a growing up son, was that my father would pass away. It was my greatest fear. If you could rank my fears as a kid, that was number one. And I got upstairs, and that was the first question I asked when I heard people crying. I said, "Is Daddy dead?" He had no reason to die. He was a young man, 48 years old. There was nothing wrong with him. I got into the room, and my mom was literally tearing out her hair and rolling on the ground with other people. And they confirmed to me my worst fears. My father had passed away. He had driven himself to the hospital, laid on the bed of the doctor who was checking him up for some heart problems. He was complaining of some pains in his chest, and then he slipped away. Ever since that moment, there's been this gaping hole within, like a void that needed to be filled. I've been haunted by his ghost. I've been haunted by the absence. I literally wrote a book about his absence. In a sense, this gathering is interactively connected with my dad and his ghost. It was my dad and his passing away that put me on a journey of decolonization, of wanting to ask the bigger questions. And that somehow diffractively led us to this moment. So I remember thinking about ghosts actively in those days, because my mommy started to, my mom, that's what I call her, my mommy. She actively started to speak about it more and more, ghosts. If the door slammed shut and we didn't exactly know why that happened, we would say, "That's Dad." My father's name was Yomi, Abayomi, which means I've conquered my enemies, or something like that. It's a Yoruba name, which in our mythology is now permitted to be the name of my son. So in a sense, my dad has returned, but that's another story. Well, I started to think about ghosts then. And then, I guess I tell you that tale because I want to say a few things about ghosts and how we think about them, and how that's connected with my earlier invitation to think about what you lose, or what you love, you will lose. Sometimes when we think about ghosts, we think about the rental ghost kind of ghost, or the Ghostbusters kind of ghost, disembodied effluvium floating in thin air, phantoms in deep space, or something like that. Things you can point electric guns at and freeze, or, disembodied things, if you will. And I feel that is a result of our training as Enlightenment citizens. We think of the world as inside versus outside. And so when we try to think of the outside, we think of the outside as supernatural, or something that cannot be explained. So we just disembody it altogether. It's metaphysical, it's strange, it's bizarre. But if you've ever read the book of David Abraham, I think it's called The Spell of the Sensuous, he tells a beautiful tale about how an indigenous community he visited thought about ghosts or ancestors. When he was told in a family that he was staying with that they were going to give the leftover of their food to the ghosts, to their ancestors, his Western idea of a ghost was, maybe they're just speaking poetically. I'm gonna take the food from them. And then he was hanging in the compound of that family one time when he glimpsed the wife of the house going to the boundary of the compound and depositing the food at the boundary, just dropping the rice there or something. I can't remember exactly what the food was, but dropping some food there. And he said he just decided to wait and watch. And then moments later, I think, an army of ants just marched out and took the food and went back into the forest, just took the grains of rice in and went away. And that's when it hit him, how we've, this colonial vision of a ghost is something that is outside, something that is Cartesian, something that is beyond. In a sense, it's how we postpone the sacred. It's over there, it's away, Whereas we're being invited to think of ghosts today as embodied, as queer, as urgent. I like that word, urgent, as intimate, as part of our materialization, not something, far away. So in a sense, the afterlife is in the middle. the afterlife is not in the afterlife, as if there's an absolute point where life stops and death begins. Death and life are already threaded through each other. They are co-constitutive. So ghosts are part of our mattering, are part of our materialization. That was very difficult to say. That was very difficult to dive into. The last time I spoke about my dad, I couldn't speak about him. Some of you remember Fran, Aaron. Okay, so yeah. What I'd like to do now is burst into an exercise with you. And I think I don't want to make I don't want to make forced connections. Like I said, I'm going to be speaking diffractively. There's no single narrative here. But if there is some connection to be made, it's probably, I'll tell you after the exercise. Let's just do the exercise first. So I'm going to invite you to do something I call forest writing, or palimpsestic writing. A palimpsest is a layer over a layer over a layer, sediments of mattering over each other. Just think of it as a rhizome or a forest. And I'll tell you what that is. I'm just going to invite Erin to unmute her mic so that we can take you through this. We're going to be breaking out into groups right now. And in each of the groups, you're going to have a worksheet. And I'm going to be inviting you to respond to a prompt that is already on your worksheet. It's right there. We're very organized. We're amazing people on the WWDWM Mountains team. Awesome stuff we've done. So you go to your room and you're going to be with a number of people in that room and respond to the prompt. Please read the instructions well. And then 10 minutes later, we'll come back and talk about our experience. Basically, that's it. I'll leave the surprise to you. It's not going to be surprising to people like Fran or Brenda, who've done this before and are already laughing. But please just trust the invisible, the ghosts that are haunting this place. So, Erin, let's go to the next.
Okay, it's gonna be a moment here while we get somewhat organized on this front. So what's gonna happen is that we're gonna be in 10 different groups of about 5 people. And each group is gonna have a link holder. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm writing a little private message to the link holders for each of those 10 rooms. And what you're responsible for as the link holder of your room is to share that link once you get into the small group so that you can all go to this Google Doc where you'll be writing and creating something together. So I'm going to need a moment. And maybe, Bio, I don't know if you want to give any more instruction for the activity, but I am going through our list of link holders and sending them private. If you are not on a computer, this will be a more interesting experience for you. You're more than welcome to try to contribute from an iPad or your phone. If you're on the phone, in this case, you'll just stay in the main room and we can have a conversation, since it's probably a little challenging to have you participate on the Google Doc. And I'm getting messages from people here now, don't make me a link holder. So I will try to pay heed to that. So I'm just going to send these messages to these folks, but any questions that you might have, please go ahead. This is quite an adventure this morning.
So the link holders don't do anything. You're not supposed to organize what happens in the rooms. You're simply supposed to open the room, basically, for people to come in and meet whatever they meet in the room. The monsters that are waiting to embrace you in those rooms. There's no instruction except that you respond to the prompt that is right there, and then stay with the trouble, stay with the mess, and then we come back and we talk about the mess, the farting together that is happening and is about to happen. Yeah, Erin, anytime you're ready, take us away.
Yeah, I just got to send each of the link holders their link. So hold on one second. The one thing that the link holder is responsible for doing is sharing the link with the rest of the group. And so right. I think if you're getting a message from me right now, you're going to want to copy that link and put it somewhere else, because I have this sinking suspicion that when we go into our small groups, what will end up happening is the chat will disappear. So if you're a link holder and I've sent you a link, make a copy of that link somewhere on a note somewhere that you can paste into the chat of your small group. And I'm almost done. Thank you for your patience. One last one.
This feels like a flight and we're being served stuff. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, we can be courteous and polite and all that sometimes.
Okay, I think that everyone now has their link. There's actually 9 groups right now. So I'm going to cross my fingers that we're all good, and we're going to move into the breakout rooms. And then if you did not get the link or there's some confusion, there's a little button in the breakout rooms that says like, help. I don't know what it really says. And I can like a ghost kind of come into your breakout group and see if I can help troubleshoot.
So Erin, can I ask you a question? I'm in the breakout group, but you say I have to share it with everyone else. So, but I don't know who those people are, or are they just going to appear?
They're just going to appear.
Okay,
so
cool.
You're going to go into your breakout group, right? And then you have the chat function on Zoom. And so what you'll do is you'll have your link copied as the link holder, and all you're going to do is paste that link into the chat in your small group. And then everyone there can click on that link, and then you'll suddenly all be in a shared Google Doc where you can write into each other, or like as the case may be. Okay, we're going to try this. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to open all the breakout rooms. All you have to do is say accept, and you'll be taken, whisked away to your breakout room. So here we go.
Bye. See you guys soon.
Is anybody there?
Hello. Yes, I'm wondering who this is on the phone, because you're just going to stay here and we'll have a rich conversation unless you have access to a computer, whoever this is. And then I can add you to a computer.
This is Uli. Am I the only one here? Hi.
You're the only one on the phone, but if you have access to a computer, I can email you the link and I can add you to a group as you would like.
Oh, I don't right now. Shall I just hang and wait
Just
till
stay
they
with
come
us
back?
then. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Okay, great.
Bio and me and Chris and Teresa's
Jürgen,
still here. Jürgen,
Teresa,
Eve.
Eve.
Oh, wow. I was the only one on the phone, huh?
It's okay.
Great.
Hello, Uli.
Hi, is that Bio? Hi.
How are you doing? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Massachusetts. I'm
Okay.
super intrigued by what's gonna happen now.
Okay.
It sounds
Okay.
very intriguing.
It is. It's messy too. It's very messy. But you're here with my brothers, John and Christopher and Jürgen, my big brother, and Eve. So we can just talk basically until this is like the green room where you get served, good stuff, tea and all that.
I was very, very struck by this ghost discussion. I have trouble keeping up with all the Facebook things and everything, but so I hadn't actually even read anything that anybody had written. But there's such a transmission of this woven in reality that you were just talking about, Bio, that right in the call and in what people were reading, that it just totally transported me, and I've felt the kind of clumsiness of a Western mind in relationship to it. But I've definitely felt like my grandma, my dad after he died, and I've definitely felt people around that I know were there, but not in this form, and that I knew them in. So it feels very real.
Thanks for sharing that, Uli. Thank you, and you're welcome again. So Jürgen, unmute yourself. This is the green room. You first class. first class, or yeah. And yeah, we can just talk here. Basically, maybe if you have a ghost experience.
Oh, a ghost experience. Well, my answer to ghosts is always very simple. I don't believe in ghosts. I've encountered ghosts.
Ghostbusters kind of ghost.
All kinds of ghosts, you know. You go to a concentration camp, there are ghosts, you know. You go to you know, I've walked through clouds of ghosts, and they've given me a song. You know, I've encountered ghosts that wanted to fight with me and that were clearly very bad, and and I was glad that I had a few protections at hand. So,
that is not me. That must be Data. Brother Data, can you hear us?
He said he can hardly hear. He's got some serious. He's in the realm of the in between limbo ghosts of technology.
Yeah, he's in the bardos.
Oh,
he's transitioning.
Okay. Right. But I think the Diwali sounds are in your area. I think not here anymore. Not as loud.
Some of them actually sounded like things exploding during the fires here, because because all the propane tanks were exploding. So there was this constant popping, you know, of people's propane tanks exploding. So not quite like firecrackers, but actually much more scary. Yeah.
Hi, Debbie. Did you get kicked out of your small group?
I was in the swirling world there. What do they call that? The swirling pool of death, you know? And
the rainbow wheel of death. Do you know who you were with before? Do you want me to add you back?
I was with Fran.
Okay, let me add you back into your room here, and hopefully you'll go straight through the rainbow wheel of death and into the world of the
Maybe we're
small.
trying to get there all at the same time.
Okay, hold on one second.
The wormholes here are very fragile, you know.
Yeah.
Very fragile things, wormholes.
Okay, here you go. I'm sending you back, Debbie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Chris, how you doing, brother?
Good. I think I'm waking up a little still, but I'm.
It's so early here.
I know. It's a beautiful sunrise. So I do appreciate being up for that. So.
Thank you, brother, for getting up for this.
Yeah.
So I could do a boo, you know, to get you up.
As we were talking about ghosts, I was kind of seeing, checking in how I relate to that. And I can't say that I've had those kind of experiences that Jürgen was referring to, but I think for me, it's definitely like a felt sense of things. It's not something I see visually or some, Western coherence to it, or I don't know, just coherence period. But I definitely especially, to me, it's usually very much attached to place, and I can be in certain places and have a real felt sense of maybe sadness, and sometimes I can connect it to an experience. Like I have a friend who committed suicide a few years ago, and I'll drive through town and I'll see a place that him and I spent time at and feel that. And to me, that's a form of a ghost, and a form of it hangs on me. It's in me. I wouldn't go so far as to say it haunts me in the sense that we think about that, but it's in me, and it's part of the grief, I guess.
Thank you, brother. Eve, if you'd like to share something, the space is open basically for us to, if you want to.
Sure. I was thinking about what Chris said. For me, it feels you can go into. I was thinking about the house I used to live in. It was a very old house, and it felt as if some spots had a trapped energy. It was like an energy, also not seen, but the presence when I answered the phone, or a sense here sitting on being in my shoulder, or the light going on by itself. There are some things a bit more manifest than the felt, the energy, the owls that would come in at night. So I was wondering about, that beautiful sense of trapped energy, which can also, another old building just here in the eco village where I live, some people have seen a dog or in my chest. And they were very astonished because it was the first white person that the ghost had made itself present to. So I don't know what that was like, So I was just thinking about that, and then I love what you said about what still haunts us. So it doesn't have to be the energy or the visceral ghost or the ghostbuster, but that thing that still haunts, or haunts on a collective unconscious, it haunts the apartheid in my country, or so that's just what I was musing about.
Thank you.
Fantastic question. It's just a fantastic question.
It's amazing how I like how you brought in the apartheid and hauntings and hauntologies, like Derrida would call it. And I was listening to Chris speak about place. And how,
yeah, exactly.
And it's fascinating that I recall in my own context in Lagos, they said if you want to see a ghost, it's not like they say if you want to see a ghost. It's basically a warning not to assume a particular posture. And the posture is, if you're in the marketplace, and that's a place, don't look underneath your legs. or else you will see the dead sweeping the ground, the eternal dead. And the people who sweep the ground are those who pay sellers or are caught in some kind of debt or whatever. And the way they pay back is they're obliged, they have to sweep the marketplace. And it's a really frightening, horrific thing to behold. I've never done it because I was told that tale when I was little. But it's fascinating how our idea of the spectral is tied to place, is entangled also with posture, our body posture. And that feels to me to be urgent. The sacred is not far away. It's right here, just a body posture away. And I can be in touch with the so-called divine that is already part of the material, that is already, here, right now. And this brings to mind the conversation Jürgen and I have started. Jürgen, maybe we should write a book about our conversations on new materialisms.
Okay.
He said okay.
I'm game.
Right.
And what did you call it, Bio? I couldn't hear that.
What did I call what?
A new
A
material.
book on what?
Oh, new materialisms.
Oh.
New materialisms. Let me use my Nigerian accent.
Don't worry.
New materialisms. Basically, the idea that matter is not dead. The world is not dead. It's alive. And the reason why we have ghosts, levitating above the material is because Enlightenment thinkers had no faith in the aliveness of matter. So we needed to create an extra realm to push the sacred to.
Well, it's an extra realm that the men are in charge of.
And the men are in charge of it.
The priests and the church and all of that, yeah.
Indulgences, I think they're called indulgences, right? The coin.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, indulgences. Drop a coin.
Yeah.
Okay, Erin. Yeah.
Is the time? I think it's pretty close to time.
10 minutes,
I wasn't.
Right? You think it's...
Yeah, I wasn't able to look at the time because I was sending all those messages. So I actually have no idea what time we started. But I just got a message from Fran, and they were worried because they didn't know how much time they had. I can send a message and to everyone and say that they have 2 minutes left because I feel like. Yeah, and then it'll end. When you end it, it gives them still another minute. So I'll say 2 minutes, and then they'll have a little extra. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But it also, I mean, why do we even need to give the time, right? What are they? We want them to sit. Yeah, just take them out when it's ready. Don't give them time.
They get time no matter what because that's the way that we have Zoom set up. I think where they get like a little cushion. But they get a minute, so we can also just close the rooms, and then they have a minute. They won't be like ripped from their conversation.
You could just be like a ghost that comes in, Erin, and
comes in, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The haunting.
Yeah, the haunting.
Oh, there's Teresa.
Teresa's back. Okay.
Teresa, I made you a link holder, and then your group was like, what are And there's Diwali. All right, I'm going to close the rooms, and we're not going to give them any. We're just going to use the fireworks of Diwali as a divine.
A ghostly intervention.
I also want to let you guys know that I just forgot to stop recording this, so I thought it was I stopped. But then I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. So hold on 1 second. I have someone asking for help. So let me do that, and then I'll close the rooms.
Okay.
Data? 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 Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let's end these breakout rooms. Okay, the countdown is on. Oh, Signy was ready. She just came back. Hi, Jay.
Hello, Jay.
Hi, Judy.
Hi.
Judy.
Hi.
Welcome back from your spaceship.
My spaceship.
Okay, so we're getting back into the room.
I think that Teresa came back. She was like gone for the whole time, and she was the one that I gave the link to. And then I think she just came back and joined a group, and now she's just gonna get thrown right back into this mirror.
Now she's gonna wonder what in the world happened.
Oh. So some people were locked out of the rooms, out of the work.
No, they were good. They just got me to help them, and then I was able to give them the link. So it worked out really fine.
Well, they're ghosts that are associated with places, and then they're wandering
Now we
ghosts.
have to mute ourselves.
Actually, I heard that. I heard we have to mute ourselves. Actually, okay, yeah, let's do that just so that we can invite you back properly. You're welcome back from your spaceships. Now let's share about what happened in those rooms. Whatever happened, just speak to it. Okay, there's no right or correct answer. This is not a trick exercise. Let's just see what happened with you. What was your experience?
Loved it.
I'm sorry. It's like you're scaring me, mommy. I'm sorry.
It was very busy. Once I got in, it was very busy.
Okay, once you got in, it was very busy.
Busy, yeah.
Busy, right.
I think it was like a party.
It was like a party.
Definitely a party.
Giant ancestor party.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to read what everyone else wrote because I was writing.
You still have access to those documents. You don't need to go. You can actually access it. Did anyone write anything coherent?
No.
I think that we did. I think that for me, I found it very profound.
Okay.
I
Anna,
don't
you want to read what you guys did? Share it with us. Yeah.
I hope that's okay. I will read just
It's
a
okay.
piece of it because it was long, but we were writing and then some of us were going back, or maybe all of us were going back and rewriting into it and answering each other and building a narrative. And I don't think it's finished, but I'll read part of it, the beginning anyway.
Okay.
This is truly written with everybody together. It's amazing. I feel the ghosts of my past always catching up with me in the dark early hours of the morning when I lay awake, unable to re-enter the rest of peace in my dreams. I feel the sadness and grief deep inside. I feel the deep lines of disconnection with my ancestors, like they are the ghosts of my soul that I have also cut myself off from. I am a moo-moo all the time. Everywhere I go, the air is steeped in the echoes of everything that happened in those places before. Listen to me, hear me, I exist. As I get older, all the places I know and visit are so heavily layered with memories, which still live in that place. I am scared of ghosts or moo-moos, but there's a huge part of me which wants to meet them. Then there's the material ghosts. I call them plants, for instance. They're wise. They're crazy wise. They're normal and everything in between. I've been haunted by their sheer slow presence. They love me and threaten me all the time. We love you, we challenge you, we grow you into becoming. But all the time they're showing me what it means to be real, to let all the moo-moos in oneself out in the open material world. My dad just called. He was calling me like 10 times before I called back now. I felt anger and curiosity won this time. All this ghost parent wanted to know was if I had enough money to take care of myself. Ghosts are parenting us. They're watching over us. They are guiding us as we reflect their lives. This is crazy. I feel like I'm an ant crawling with other ants on a Google Doc. It goes on quite a lot longer. I don't know if I should keep reading it but anyway, this is kind of what.
Okay. I don't even know where to start, except maybe whose voice was that? Did you guys delete each other? And how did you feel about being deleted? Were there, emphasized? Were there dominant voices? What basically happened? And that's a question for any other person who would like to share. With you, at least, Anna.
I can answer that, sorry, or someone else in the group.
Yeah, you can answer that. Are you in there is my question. Are you there?
Yeah, I am. And for me, like at the beginning, someone started writing and there was this long pause. So I just started writing the first thing that came to me, which was really personal. And then after a few sentences, I looked back and somebody had gone in and added, a response to what I was saying, or had taken out a word and changed it. And,
right.
And it felt very powerful for me. Because I was writing about something about a ghost of a friend I lost a year ago, and then so I kept going, and then I decided it was time to respond to what somebody else was writing, and I read, and then I wrote something in response, and it just kept happening because I think that's what we were doing. Maybe someone else in the group can share what their experience was.
I was also in that group, and I would actually love to read the rest of it because I realized most of my writing is in the next part. And I just had this feeling of, wait a minute, where's my voice? And it also feels like it just keeps deepening. So is it all right if I read? It's just about two more paragraphs.
Okay, just if you can read one paragraph, because I want to touch on, there's a question that is simmering, that is haunting me right now, what I would like to break open into the group. But Shanti, yes, let's hear that paragraph.
All right. I'll just skip a thing. Time has something to do with it. Like something that happened in the past is still here, still happening now. Always, always, always. I take out those letters sometimes, and I remember where I was when I received them. Here, always here. And I receive them again. And I want to write back to her, to those confused young people we were. But there was, oops. I'm gonna cut out because the dog's
okay.
too much.
Yeah. Okay.
The dog is afraid of your ghost.
So any other group can respond to this and also read if you would like to do that within the time we have left. Did you find yourself making space for polite space for others to do their writing? Like maybe you went down the page and said, that's your space, this is my space, I'm going to do my writing. And were you incensed when someone actually deleted your story? Something like that. Those feelings. Who would like to share? Yeah.
I found in our group that, and I think a lot of it is just my particular state of being at this moment, that I was sort of, well, first I was frustrated because nobody posted a link. Well, then it turned out that the person who was supposed to post the link wasn't there. So I said, okay, this group is being led by ghosts to start with. And then there was I didn't feel like there was any cooperation. There was any, there was any awareness of writing one document. It was like we were all putting our own things just kind of in a mess. And in my normal place, I would have tried to do something about that, and I just didn't have the energy to do it. So I would say that for me, the whole activity was kind of annoying.
Right. I understand that. I think that's part of it too, Judy. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being bold to share that. Would anyone else like to share?
I couldn't wait to I just couldn't wait to see what other people were going to say or add on to what I said. And it was like a party. It was like, oh, anything could happen here. And it was really fun. And I just really enjoyed it. People came up with some really lovely, wonderful images and ideas and so on. I was very happy about it. It was fun.
What did this do to your sense of agency, your sense of me-ness? Like, I want to do my own thing, and you're right here changing my words.
I'm the type who I like to have people. I need help. I was happy for the help.
Okay.
My sense of agency was like, okay, I'll take what this person has to offer.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go.
I was part of Marnie's group also, and at least a few of us were having a lot of fun. I don't want to speak for everyone. And what was interesting was that from the very start, where we started out with, I met a ghost outside in the woods walking with my dogs. I said hello to this wind energy. Instead of responding the way I expected, the wind ghost whooshed right through my body. And from that very outset, it was interesting that kind of from that first encounter with the ghost we met once, we all sort of lost our own normal boundaries, and then all boundaries started to become questionable. And we had fish stampeding in the sea. We had whales singing on the land. The whole thing was unmappable. At least I believe for those who were participating, nobody deleted anyone. We don't have a terribly coherent story, but it was interesting that it instantly became questionable how different we are from the ghosts. There was a lot of transformation happening, a lot of unexpected things that defy normal laws of physics. And it was fun.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. Could we get just one? If someone would like to share a crazy reading, April, I see you raising your hands. Yeah.
Our group was pretty quiet, but I thought that was awesome. I really enjoyed like the silence. It almost felt like a reverence and a respect we were paying to all of our ancestors. And there were a few things that I drew in from earlier in the call that I started to write down, and I hope you don't mind if I share.
Yeah.
What you love, you will lose. I told my partner this morning that we were talking about ghosts. What came up for me was my father, and how we were only a part of each other's lives in the flesh during my childhood, my pre-adolescence. I couldn't help but think of the many unconscious acts that were brought down upon him as a child. Because I was one of the recipients of the unconscious acts growing up, I was so good at embodying his ghosts that I lost my way. I wanted to opt out of the pain of being born and raised traditionally in the West because the body I was born into didn't quite match the mass culture I was assimilated into. That pain drove me to looking at suicide as an option plenty of times. I carried out the act to end the pain and suffering as I aged and carried self-destructive cycles. Into my later teen years, I began questioning my identity. I was angry. I was afraid. I was lost. I had no connection. I didn't know what love was. I wasn't enough for any of the groups I floated into and out of, always on the fringes and questioning. My body carried and continues to carry grief for the spirits that have not been recognized, that have received and also carried out violence. The past, the present, and the future are us, are all of us. The land we walk upon are waiting for our tears to pour as an offering, as permission for those who haven't crossed over yet. For those that are lingering in our bodies that we think are ours. My father died in 2000. It was a cardiac arrest after a violent seizure. His body was in the kitchen the day we moved out. There were knocking noises coming from that room. He experienced seizures almost every month. It was the norm. The seizures looked like convulsing, and then he would get up and walk around like a belligerent drunk person, and this was during unconscious awareness. One time he punched a window unconsciously and barely missed the artery in his wrist. He needed a lot of healing growing up. He was disconnected from elders, community, and ritual. He was a lost man, but I love him so dearly. I forgive myself. I forgive him. I love you, Dad. Renee Munoz. Last year, his spirit, no longer a ghost, was transitioned. I was driving from Oregon with my partner, Carmela.
Did you leave at 10:15 or?
What's that?
Go ahead, April. Go
Oh,
ahead. Please go ahead.
So his spirit transitioned last year. I was driving from Oregon with my partner, and songs that he loved and sang when he was alive began to stream through the radio. Unchained Melody came on. Many songs by the Platters came on. He communicated his love and asking for forgiveness. My body began to convulse and I was shivering. Tears streamed down my face. My heart was racing and I needed to pull onto the shoulder of the highway. We were near Redding. The sky was black, the stars were out, and my gaze was drawn to the sky. I saw, not with my eyes, but I saw the brightest star explode into a streaming light that shot far off into space like a rocket ship. My body continued to quiver. My face, my head were vibrating, and I moaned and grieved and wailed on the side of that highway. Carmela was holding me in her witnessing eyes, so supportive. I tried regaining feeling back into my fingers and hands. The stream of tears needed to carry his spirit to the realm of the ancestors. Thank you.
Thank you, April, for sharing that, for the courage to share that. I hope you feel held by everyone here.
I do. Everyone's pretty legit here.
Take a look at the chat space and see the love we're textually sending your way and virtually sending. We're part of you, and we're so happy you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I love you guys.
Love you too.
Love you too, April.
Yeah.
Y'all are hell awesome.
Can't mute me.
And Jonathan says something that there's so many comments in the chat thing that I've lost. I was going to refer to it, but you guys are on a roll, so I'm not able to refer to it. But Jonathan said something about us being ghosts to each other, which is the point. And I think let's dive in even deeper. I wish you could stay with this moment a while longer. Maybe let's stay with it. Let's stay with it for a few seconds. Let's just sit with the messiness, the ghostliness, the ghastliness of presence. And be here together.
I wanted to share something about the experience, the group experience. Is that okay?
Oh, yes, sister, it's okay.
Only because I don't speak very much during these sessions. And so today I was wanting to write down, so I shared a lot of things with the group. I don't even know what group I was in. That's how savvy I am. I had trouble finding the link and everybody helped me, and my dog was jumping up, showing herself because I thought I was waiting for the link. But I felt like my experience with the group was I really wanted to share some things that I would not normally share so quickly so that we could engage with each other. So I never was aware of what other people were writing and was trying to quickly finish so that I could engage. So I felt like sometimes, even in this space, we're so time driven and so linear. And even though we're trying not to be that, or we are aware of it, we're still doing it so I felt very penned in, not this kind of pen, locked in, and then all of a sudden we're whisked away. So I don't feel the slowness. I did not feel the slowness in it, nor do I have any awareness of who I was supposed to be engaging with. So it's not frustrating, it's just that I sort of went into a journal space. So if we were meant to engage, there wasn't enough slowness. It's all good though. It's all good.
It's all good, sister. It's all
Yeah.
good. And that's a beautiful thing to say. It's all good, especially to say it in that way. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it just would be nice this was one day or one moment where I wanted to hear back from the group, and now I have no idea who they are.
We will still have that time. We will create that time so we can there's never going to be enough time to really hold each other like we want to, right?
Yeah, no, there's enough time. It's cool. It's cool as it is, seriously. But thank you for letting me chime in here.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. And thank you, April, and thank you, everyone, for sharing. And if you feel the spirits are inviting you to interrupt me, great, do so. But please listen to them quite well to make sure they're asking you to interrupt me. But yes, that's what we're creating here together. I think this speaks to the many species of presence that the world is materialized from, if you will. The modern mind sees the world and says everything makes sense. Like there's this flat landscape of grids and figures and values. And basically, the modern mind looks at the entire cosmos and said, we've colonized everything. Nothing is surprising anymore. So everything makes sense. There are no limitations, there are no boundaries, there are no obstacles. And then we come to a world that is inviting us to see it as ghostly, as spectral, as sensuous. And then we realize that sense making is just a species, just one member out of a radically promiscuous universe that is too large for sense making, that is too big to figure out. And that is why indigenous people would say, slow down. And that is why we can't figure it out. And that's why there's some places where we have to realize that the universe is still trying to figure out the answers to itself. The universe is like a teenager. And so when we pose questions to it, in the ways we do as modern citizens, gestating in cities, we expect that the answer is out there, somewhere in the grid, somewhere in the framework is the answer. All I need to do is probe deeper in my phallic drive to find it. And if I exert enough of my patriarchal strength, I will find that answer. But the universe says, I don't know what you're talking about. The answer is not ready yet. And that's the sensuous, entangled, spectral, haunted world that we're invited to see. And maybe this is what the exercise illustrates. And I hope we can find some time to do it again. Another thing that it does illustrate is that life is awkward. I'm sure, well, that happened to be the case in the other iteration of the course. There were notes like, I see thou, it, it was totally incoherent. And some people came back really angered, angry and triggered. Like, I tried to write a beautiful story and there you are interrupting my storyline. And I think that's, that shows us that life itself is awkward and things evolve or emerge from that awkwardness. A writer called Niels Bobant says every pebble is full of spirits. And by that he means that if you actually think about how stones and pebbles and things form, they're always haunted. If it's not organic parts that have materialized and been crushed into little pieces and been taken into geological dynamics and then materialized as stones and pebbles, then it's something else. So the world itself is matters because of our ghostly neighbors. The people who interrupt us are part of us. Think about the essay or the thing you've just written. think about its deletions, the things you deleted, the things, I think it was John that said the word crazy was changed to wise. Now that word crazy haunts the piece. It's a ghost to the piece that has been written. And so ghosts are always part of our mattering. And that's why presence, and this is really what I want to say here as I move into another episode, presence itself is troubling. I think this is a great contribution of the modern world, that presence is okay. If you look at your laptop, it's just a laptop. There's nothing more to it. If you look at a pebble, it's a pebble. And it needs to do that because it wants to divide the world into categories. And when you think of a firecracker, it's just a firecracker. But what I think we're being invited to see is that everything is sacred because it's haunted. A laptop is not just a laptop. A laptop is some kids in China making circuits. Those are the ghosts that haunt this laptop. The laptop is the depressed DHL person who brought it to my house. It haunts this piece. The laptop is I could say, for instance, that the time I spent on the laptop is haunted by the time I spend away from my wife. The exclusions always haunt what matters. And that's what we mean by ghosts. That's what we mean by spectralities or hauntologies. We're haunted because we matter, or we matter because we're haunted. And so the myth that enchantment is in short supply is the myth of the modern world. It says, you want to feel indigenous? Do you want to feel sacred? Then pack your bags and travel to Burkina Faso and get Iboga, or engage in some spiritual ritual or something, or paint your face in war paint and feel like a tribe, or like a member of a tribe, and that's okay. But I think the deeper teachings of our moments right now is where we are is sacred. We don't have to look far away. The ghosts that haunt us are urgent. We are already threaded through with ghosts. We are already embodied with voices and lives and politics and cosmologies that are mattering and cause us to matter, or are the conditions of our mattering. Every pebble is full of spirits. Every essay is full of spirits. Every body is a spirit, or is a constellation of spirits. It's a Diwali of spirits, if you will. So I said that presence is always troubling. And I want to recount, move it to another episode. It's connected in some way, but I'm taking quantum leaps, if you understand what I'm doing. I was swimming in the Yuba River. Fran knows this story. We shared it. I keep referring to Fran's knowledge of my story. Enjoy the haunting of Diwali. And I almost drowned. This was last year. I turned 33. September 18, I was in California. I was having a meeting with my colleagues for an organization called the Emergence Network. And they said, hey, let's go swim. And they all went into the river, and I almost drowned. But that's not the real story. Just before I started to drown, and I was rescued by my friends. You know, it's true what they say. This is an aside. It's true what they say, that the faces of those you love flash before you just minutes before death comes knocking. And it seemed that way because I started to remember my wife and my kid. Well, just before I dived into the water and pretended to swim, I noticed a counter. It was like a Coca-Cola top, a counter. We call it counters in Nigeria, at least. I don't know what it's called. And I started to realize how the counter was natural. Now, the story we will tell ourselves is that, for instance, when Eve tells us to go outside or just find nature and sit with nature, some of us may have thought, where do I find a piece of nature? Like, the idea that comes to your mind is a patch of grass or panoramic view of the mountains. I think in the United States it's called the great outdoors, as opposed to the great indoors or the smaller indoors. And so you're starting to think, how in the city will I find nature? Because our metaphysics teaches us that nature is anything that is not man-made, which begs the question of what man is made from, or whether man is man-made. But that's beside the point. The point I want to express here is, where did we learn to divide nature in the ways that we do? Or where does the natural stop and the artifact begin? Are laptops natural? Smartphones? Does anyone agree that a laptop is natural, or disagree? Just let me see your hands up. You don't need to unmute your mics. I just want to see. If you think a laptop is natural, let me see your hands in the air, waving them like you just don't care. We're haunted by hip hop. If you think a laptop is not natural, it's unnatural, just let me see your hands up. Great. Signy, I see you, sister, mother. And
what about both?
Jürgen, thank you. I was just about to go there. There's a writer called Donna Haraway. I keep on referring to her, and she says, nature is not natural. Nature is its own deconstruction. So the idea that nature is boundaried is another symptom of modernity. Like, this is where the city stops and this is where nature begins. And what that elides, what that occludes, are the boundary-making dynamics. The fact that each object, the book on my table, the smartphone that I have in my hand, is just as tethered and as entangled and as boundaried and as embodied as every other thing that we would count as sacred or natural. But because of our tendency to divide the world into twains, or into binary objects, we tend to see nature as outside and the less than sacred on the inside. I was in a conference in Berlin, and I remember after they invited me to speak about activism, and I just finished speaking, and there was this side exercise, and everyone was there, and they brought out this whiteboard, and the exercise was, think about the old story and everything that lies in the old story. And then they drew a line across down the middle, and they said, write down everything that is old story here on the left, and everything you see as new story on the right. And so people wrote racism, ageism, poverty, the things you would expect as old story. And in the new story, gift culture, prosperity, and stuff like that. And I was called upon to write something because I think they'd run out of people writing stuff. And I got there and I said, the line is old story. The line right down in the middle is old story. The idea that we could distinctly divide in some neat way between old stories and new stories, not noticing how these things already touch each other, how nature touches on nature, how life is already implicated in death, and death in life, how me is already part of you, how we haunt each other, is old story, so to speak, which is ironic to say. So I want to do a few things. First, I'll say that a couple of things that I'd like to share, that nature proliferates ghosts in its constant deconstruction of itself. And that's not even a human process. And that noticing ghosts is the critical condition for reimagining our world, you know. And noticing ghosts helps us stay with the trouble of our presence. I want to read something from Dorian Sagan. It's in this book called Arts of Living on a Damaged Planet, if you'd like to. It's a good reference. And the book is crazy because it's haunted. If you flip it over, it's haunted by another side, if you will. Another side that threads through it. So you read this book diffractively. And one of the chapters here is called Beautiful Monsters by Dorian Sagan. I'll just read a part of it. He says, the world is a beautiful, frightening monster. The internal combustion engine is a monster. And I myself often notice my heart jump at the sound of cars and chainsaws. But nature's monstrosity is not only concrete, pollution, machine gray, and murderous red. It is also instructively and paradoxically, considering the associations of the green movement, it is verdant in hue. For green is the color of the cyanobacteria that mutated 2 billion years ago, causing the greatest pollution crisis in planetary history. Now, all the associations we make with the green movement about moving towards green, think about how green was at one time a crisis. Think about how we think about activisms as resolutions to crisis, when we ourselves are crisis in iteration, when we ourselves are ongoing reconfigurations of crisis. We are crisis. We are not here to solve the world. To live in the middle of this messiness, this entanglement, is to accept that we are part of the trouble. Not in a sense like, let's get rid of humans. That's anti-humanist. But in a sense of noticing that there are no solutions, like Karen Barad would say. There's only a noticing of spectralities, of ghosts that are part of our making. So I'm going to do 4 case studies, and I think this would just close it up. I chose a couple of places that should invite us to rethink the way we think about matter, or think about ourselves, or think about the world, or think about the divide between nature and unnature. So I'm going to share my screen. Erin, can I do that? I can do that without being the host, right? Okay. There you go. I know last time there was some trouble with the sharing. Can everyone see what I'm sharing right now? Please tell me if you can't. Okay. So what I'm about to show you is slightly disturbing, considering that most of these events are recent. A word comes to mind, and it's the Anthropocene. You probably have heard of it before. And it's the idea in the present. It's like alien physics. Like if an alien geologist were to come and to examine the Earth after human beings have been wiped off, he would see evidence. He or she would see evidence that human beings existed. That is the import and the impact of human beings on Earth. So much so that we have formed a geostrata ourselves. We've become part of the layer of the Earth. We fundamentally transformed the planet. And this argument is really held by people who advocate that we need to move away from our industrial, exploitative, excavatory kind of economies and move into something that is Earth honoring and Earth that treats the Earth as sacred. And so these are case studies in something I would call spectrality, or let me use another word, undecidability. That is the idea that what makes us up, or what makes anything up, is fundamentally undecidable. This goes against what we probably have been taught to think like or about in physics or in the modern world. We think that if there's an event here or an object, it has a causal link going back a series of causes all the way to some prime cause, if you follow some theological arguments. But a world that is entangled cannot be figured out that way. It is fundamentally undecidable, or in a sense, it is haunted. It is ghostly. To try to ascribe a cause, a single cause, in a world that is too sensuous for that, is to perpetuate some kind of politics. And so the Anthropocene is we're finding we're losing the ability to tell the difference between nature and unnature, or where the political stops and where the geological begins. And so I just want us to think about these case studies. There are 4 case studies here. Many of us were in this situation. Our hearts still beat with you for experiencing this. I was in this place. I was hosted in Santa Rosa last year, and I just got these images online of the kind of amazing, crazy, heart-wrenching devastation that has happened because of the fires. The grief of this moment is, I have no words. Did some crying just getting these pictures and putting them on slides. And I bring this up because I want to ask the question, and I want you to hold these questions, because I've been asking them myself. I have family here, people I consider as family in these areas. What happened? How do we even figure out what happened? Now, I've read some articles, some of them referring to gas leaks. Maybe my brother Jürgen was speaking about propane gas, and even considered a spark somewhere. This far-right conservative news group called Breitbart, I think, released some, news, maybe fake news, that immigrants were the ones that set the town on fire. They set the whole place on fire. And I just want you to notice how we moderns are making sense of what happened, trying to ascribe causes to it. Whereas another way of making sense is noticing what haunts this entire thing. Now, it may seem to be a natural disaster, is what some classical accounts of this are calling it, just a natural disaster. It wasn't anyone's fault. So it's geological. But in a sense, it's also haunted by the politics, by far-right conservative groups who want to insist that this is immigrant nonsense, by the spirits of this place, by whatever is haunting this town. It seems it's already congealed to be part of this event. If that's not clear enough, if the ghostly, ghastly presence of all of this is not clear, if this before and after image, this depressing before and after image is not clear, then maybe not the North Dakota case study might bring that up. Now, is this just, if you can hear, my baby is haunting from the room opposite. Is this just corporate capitalism run amok? Is this Trump and his cronies, the billionaire class, trying to pass pipelines through areas without the people's consent? Everyone knows the story of the North Dakota, the Sioux tribe in Standing Rock Indian Reservation, and how these people are fighting. But another story comes up, and this is why I'm inviting us to think about spectrality, not in the modern sense of just being causal links, but being haunted, being ecosystems of hauntings. What haunts this as well. What denies a single linear cause is the other story that even the Sioux tribe tells themselves. There's a prophecy here that the black snake will try to come and it will be shut down, that people will rise up and they will challenge that black snake and they will defeat it. And it's another cosmology altogether that is wrapped up with corporate consolidation, with greed, with the patriarchy of this moment, with police navigating this area, and with protest, and with the notion of activism. These are all the things that haunt this moment. Let me take you to my own country, in the Niger Delta. Brenda started this session talking about the Black River, and I just shook my head, if you noticed, how that was entangled with what I wanted to show. This is an area in the Niger Delta that is called Boda in Ogoni land. This is as a result. This is not something that happened a long time ago. This happens right now. This is hundreds of years of colonization. This is shell activity, just destroying the land of these people. This is how they live their lives. There's literally no place to plant their feet that is not layered with oil, layered with capitalism, layered with patriarchy, layered with this idea, this metaphysics, that the only way to live with the earth is to exploit it. Look at the farmers. This is what they deal with every day. They cannot plant food without touching oil, without being shareholders of Shell, if you will. And how blood is already thickened and curdled with oil. This probably will not come up on CNN, and this will come up once in a while, but this is the everyday reality of the people that I call my people. Those are houses. Now the people will say, the activists who are trying to protect this area would say that this is basically Shell and the greed of people who want to get rich off these people's backs. But there is another story too that haunts this. It's called the Egbesu mythology of the people of Ogoni land. And what they say is that Egbesu is a war god. In fact, the people who carry guns, who you see in Hollywood movies as terrorists, you know, the people with red bandanas, black skin, glistening in the sun, those are the Egbesu boys. But they are misrepresented as terrorists, where they're trying to protect their lands from these people that are trying to pass pipelines and have successfully done so and killed hundreds of people, thousands of people. The Egbesu mythology is the mythology of a war god called Egbesu. And Egbesu says that these people, these lands will not know peace until they've driven out every form of colonization. They've driven out Shell and all their crony capitalist friends and all the liquefied natural gas. They've driven all of them out. That's what the mythology is being told as today. So that haunts this moment as well. And then you must have heard of Ken Saro-Wiwa. He was an activist. He fought Shell to get them out of the lands. Ken Saro-Wiwa was hung, you know, or I think the right word is hanged. He was hanged by his neck by the Nigerian government in league with Shell. This was, I think, in 2000, so a couple of years ago, decades ago, I think. And Ken Saro-Wiwa's spirit also haunts there. The people who there invoke the name Ken Saro-Wiwa, they muddy their faces with blood and oil to invoke the spirit of oil spillage. It's haunted by other spectralities. The people that I call people, my people today in India, this is Chennai. This was in 2015, December 2015, when the flood came. The floods came and devastated everywhere. That's a bridge right there. It closed down everything. And of course, the journalists took to their papers and their pens and they said, this is horrible. This is as a result of climate change. This is a this is a political event. It's not just geological. But there are also other stories that say this is a geological event with political after effects. It's not just purely this or that. Like Jürgen says, it can be both. Now, I think I've just taken us through this to show that it's undecidable. Spectralities, or thinking about the world as haunted, thinking about any sort of presence, any sort of bodily presence as haunted, brings us to consider something different. And that thing that is different is that we need to acknowledge that these ghosts exist, that it's totally ungraspable to find the root cause of anything, as the modern moment promises us. And when we think about indigeneity, we might speak of finding our roots, finding the one thing that we belong to. What hauntologies tell us is that that's absolutely undecidable. There's no final place to arrive at, if you will. My race, it's in a sense deeply undecidable. Activism, what we do with our world, is deeply undecidable as well. So I think I'll end with saying that we may not believe in ghosts, but we are haunted. And staying with this haunting is staying with the trouble. And staying with the trouble will invite us to notice different ways of seeing the world. Is this adequate enough to respond to the Anthropocene? No. The very invitation here is to queer our idea of adequacy. So I would like to invite us to do something. It will not be in this class. It will be something you can take and do after the session. I call it a trail of enlivenment. And I remember sharing that phrase with Eve. A trail of enlivenment. And I'll just read it out, basically how I would like us to see this. But first, a few thoughts. We are all besmirched and scorched and drowned and probed and shaped by this politics, by this Anthropocene. You may think that the Tubbs fires or the Chennai floods and all these things are happening far away. They're not far away. We're mycelially connected with it. So the Tubbs fire is my problem as well. The Chennai floods are your problem as well. They're not far away at all. They're urgent. They press on you, and not just pressing, on you as if they're outside you. They're literally part of how you exist in the world today. And so I think the question of how we respond to this is now evoked. How do we respond to these kind of crisis events? I'd like to invite us to take this trail of enlivenment, to enter, not ghost hunters, to hug ghosts, to look for ghosts, the ghosts that are already part of our materialization. And so this is the invitation here. Erin, maybe if I could write it down, if we could just do that, that would be great. So I'd like you to ask the most pressing questions you can ask by writing them down in a piece of paper. Questions like, how can I be held? Who notices me? Or how can I find healing from this pain that I feel? Any kind of question that you feel is pressing to you. You ask those questions and you write them down on a piece of paper or somewhere, anywhere. You can share your questions with an ally, just so as you write them down. Then go to nature. Already we've queered the idea of going to nature. It could be right in front of you. Nature is the computer screen you're staring into. I'd like you to not go too far, okay? Don't go too far. Don't look for nature. You are embedded in nature. No, strike that. Cancel that. You're not embedded in nature. You're what nature is doing. So it's not as if nature is a vacuum and you're inside it. You're what nature is doing. So don't go too far when I say go to nature. So write your questions down. Seek something natural or undecidable, something ghostly. Sit with that object and speak with it. Speak with the object. I want you to meet the ghosts of this object and trace the indigeneity of this object. Now you might feel indigeneity. No, that's something that human beings have. It's a property of human beings, not so. We're being invited to think that the humans are part of the world, and so indigeneity is not a property of human beings, it's a property of the whole. So sit with the object, speak with it, meet the ghosts of the object, and trace the indigeneity of the object. Now, how you do that is you write your impressions down on paper. You just sit with the object and write whatever occurs to you down on paper, while your previous and original inquiries are somewhere kept. Now, either by suggestion or signals you are receiving, follow a trail to another object and keep on writing your impressions until you feel saturated. So if you sit with a cup or a book and you try to stay with it, I'm not going to tell you what to do with it or how to relate with it, but I want you to queer and think of that object as strange. Think of the object as haunted. Everything is sacred and already enchanted. So sit with the object, relate with it in a way that you probably have never related with anything else before. Something that if someone walked in and saw you doing, they would think of you as crazy. And then write whatever your impressions are on paper. And then whatever you write down should signal you to move to some other object if you feel saturated. It could invite you to move to the floor or to a wall or to the swimming pool or to a bug. Anything you feel invited to move to that. And keep on writing in your impressions and your feelings in conversations with the things that you're meeting. Continue on this trail until you're saturated. And finally, return to your original inquiry and notice what has happened to it. Return to your original questions and notice how they are different in their materializations. So, quick sequence. Ask a question, write it down, store it somewhere, and then go on a quest in a strange world, a world that modernity has taught us to believe is normal or ordinary or right here, uncontroversial. What we're learning is everything is controversial. Everything is troubling because it hides something and it brings in something. Everything is haunted. Meet the ghosts of these things. Speak with these things. I'm not going to tell you how because I don't know how myself. Speak with these objects and either by suggestions or signals, move to objects that are in your path. Keep on moving and then write your observations or your impressions or anything that occurs to you as you're investigating, and then return to your original questions and see how they have changed. And that's why, and that's where I will end this session. I know we've spent a lot of time, but let's, I think we should invite, let me see who's, yeah, Aaron.
I think let's just have Chris share, and then it feels a bit like more. The piece I was going to do is like more a closing, and then maybe Brenda.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we have a moment of silence maybe? I feel like there's been a lot. So.
Sure. Well, that's exactly what we wanted to do, was just take some moments of silence.
Let's not dwell in linear time, right? So it's already time, right? We've spent some time here together, but let's decolonize time and say, let's spend some moments in silence together and see what happens, if only for a bit. Thank you.
So I just wanted to share really quickly, like something that's become really important for me in this last year, which is prayer. And I'm not a religious person. So when I heard about praying from people in my community, I didn't know what they were talking about. And I just want to invite us into practices that allow us to like stay in what we're feeling. And I remember the last time we talked to Isoke, she was so insistent, and I will always remember her voice, you know, like we need practice. We need practices to stay with the haunting. So I just wanted to share a couple little words about prayer from a Irish Catholic father. His name is Padraig O'Tauma, and he said, "I do love praying, like prière from French, to ask." And what I love about that word is that it doesn't require belief. It just requires a recognition of need. And I think the recognition of need is something that brings us to a deep common language about what it means to be human. And if you're not in the situation where you know need, well, then you're lucky. But you will be. That won't last for too long. Need is happening in so many ways and so many levels in people and societies and in communities. And I suppose I really think that prayer is not only naming or asking, but just saying hello to what is and trying to be brave, trying to be courageous in that situation, and trying to be generous to your own self also.
Thank you, Erin. And I just saw a comment about, ties in neatly to what you said about being shredded. I think it's Nirmala's talking about being shredded. In a sense, I think we're being called to fall apart and to sit with that falling apart. There are hardly any spaces where we can be composted ourselves, because our world is designed for us to get up and go, and it's all about gusto and achieving and reaching the stars. To be shredded is probably our last great privilege. To be confused, to stare into the abyss and to hold that trouble, to know that there are voices in there, there are things in there that are greater than our deepest philosophies, is probably our deep and last privilege as human species in this time. So if there's anything you take from hauntings, let it be that even your understanding is haunted. And whatever we make of this, there isn't going to be some final bus stop or train station to get off at. We're going to continue to deal with the murkiness of not having root causes or not having anything to hold ourselves to, except each other. And that's where community begins. That's where Isoke comes in and invites us to hold ritual space of practices that turn us to each other, because we're all we've got, not grid lines and permanent spaces, but each other, our relationships. So Chris was going to do something, but I think we've agreed that he'll do it next week. It'll be tight to do that right now. I'm going to invite Brenda to close our space and to hold us in this confusion together.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to close this as we began in the breathing, and I'll read something as you're breathing. So I'm going to invite you again to close your eyes and to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your abdomen. And with one breath, imagine the infinity. See an infinity loop between your heart and your abdomen, and on one breath, loop from your heart to this, and from one loop, the second loop to your abdomen or your womb or your hara, whatever you call that sacred abdomen space. So again, breathing, and as you're breathing in and out and slowing your breath, imagining the breath flowing from your heart and your abdomen space, the seat of your intuition, your connection to Mother Earth. And as you breathe in and out in that golden infinity loop, I'll be reading something for you to take in as you continue your breath. And this is from a dear friend named Francisca Porches, who's an organizer I've worked with in the past. We're all spiritual beings having a material experience. We are so much more than the terrible things that happen to us, and so much more than the systems of oppression or the stories in society that tell us and reinforce stories about us that are not true, that are not our whole self. Reminding ourselves of our power, our worthiness, our divinity can fortify us in the collective. And so as you continue breathing and sensing that loop between your heart and your womb, I'll read her words aloud. We give praise to the universe. We give praise to Mother Earth. We give praise to all of nature and all of its beings. We give praise to our guiding spirits. We give praise to our ancestors. We give praise to all that came before us in this struggle and in this beauty. We give praise to our elders and those who have cared for us, protected us, guided us, and loved us. We give thanks for being allowed to wake up this morning. We give thanks for our breath. We give thanks for our body. We give thanks for our journey. We give thanks for those who brought us into this world. We give thanks for all the basic necessities that are met for us on a daily basis. The sunlight on our skin, the water, the food, the clothing, our home. We give thanks for our family, friends, and community. Forgive us for the harm we do to you, Mother Earth, sacred waters, other beings, and nature overall. Forgive me for the harm I do to myself. Forgive us for the harm we do to one another. May Mother Earth be cool. May our guiding spirits be cool. May our ancestors be cool. May our heads be cool. We pray for fortitude, resiliency, and clarity. We pray for courage and self-love. May our conversations be cool. May our day be cool. May our movements for liberation be cool. May our friends be cool. May those who wish to harm us be cool. May this day be cool. May it be so. Surely shall it be.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful, haunted week.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.